Hey Adventures, so today is going to be the episode 4 Rings of Power spoiler discussion, I guess is what I'm calling it, something along those lines. Rings of Power episode 4. So this episode I did get the name of, and that is The Great Wave, which immediately I didn't love. I saw the title and I was like, there's no way that they're already doing the sinking of Numenor. And so automatically, from the very beginning, I didn't love what was happening there. Thankfully, it wasn't the sinking of Numenor yet. As always with these things, I will just go through my thoughts as I was going through the episode, talk through them, about all the things that I had written down as I was going. And if I have more things to add, I'll add them when I feel they're necessary or whatever. So, episode 4. First thing I wrote down is I don't like the dream wave. It's so predictable. So the whole thing where Miriel wakes up from a dream about a wave coming and sinking Numenor, it felt so predictable. It started out and I was like, oh, we're back in Numenor, okay. And then the wave things, I'm like, oh, it's a dream. It's a dream. And so the Great Wave is not the actual wave that sinks Numenor. It's just a wave. Yeah, or it's just a dream, and it's a vision of the future or whatever it's supposed to be. And I didn't like it. It didn't work for me. It felt very predictable, and I don't think it worked in the way that they wanted it to, at least for me. I'm liking Pharazôn a lot, especially knowing who he is and what he will do. So Pharazôn is one of those characters who I know who he is from because I've read the books, and seeing how reasonable he seems in this show and how much he just seems like a everyman, a working class blue collar worker who's risen up to the point where now he's representing people. That feel of that character and the way he's portrayed, and the fact that he knows everybody's name in the city, and he's wanting them to be the best that they can be, and all this stuff, and the way that the actor's playing the character, and the way that the character is being written as just this, he's actually a very noble guy. He wants what's best for his people. It makes sense and it works so well, and I really like portrayal of Pharazôn. I didn't care for him in episode 3 when we first met him, but this episode really did a lot to make me, you know what, I like this. I like what they're doing with him. So we go to Galadriel talking to Miriel, and she's like, the whole thing with them and not liking each other, and Miriel being mad at Galadriel for running away and going, and all that kind of stuff, just unnecessary drama, but whatever. And it gets to the point where Miriel is walking away, and so Galadriel's like, I didn't want to do this, and then she appeals to the king, the actual king. I guess it's Tar Palantir who's king, and more thoughts on Palantir coming up later. But the whole way that she was just like, you know what, I know that there's still a king because you're Queen Regent, you're not Tar Miriel, and Pharazôn hasn't become our Pharazôn yet. Tar Miriel, yeah, she's Tar Miriel. Our Pharazôn hasn't become our Pharazôn yet. Something like that. Whatever the case. So Miriel isn't queen, she's Queen Regent, which means that she technically, while in power, there's still someone above her who might be worth going and talking to. And so Galadriel saying, I want to talk to, it makes a lot of sense. It's a very smart move on Galadriel's part. And then she says, they get into an argument about it, and she says, there is a tempest in me. And that line felt really strange. I didn't like it. It worked with the scene in some ways. It just doesn't feel Galadriel-like. It feels very Galadriel-like for the show, and again, I still don't love this portrayal of Galadriel, and hopefully part of that's changing in this episode. Some things happen and that changes her, makes her more somber, makes her more, let me think about some things, stuff like that. So that's all good. But the line itself, there's a tempest in me, it didn't work. But she does in that conversation, and it's very well done because Numenor is a sea culture, they're an island. There's lots of stuff having to do with sailing, having to do with the ocean, and all that kind of stuff. And so Galadriel using ocean terminology is very smart, and it works well. You can see that Galadriel is a smart character, even though she's kind of frustrating and annoying. We go and they say something about, I didn't love the whole Isildur storyline in this one, because it implied that just because of the way that it's wording things and some of the stuff, it's implying that Isildur and Anarion are not among the faithful, which is not true. They and their father, Elendil, are among the faithful. They're basically the leaders of the faithful, with Muriel, but Muriel is in the show is not currently part of that at the moment. That's fine, but just the way they phrased it made it. I thought initially that because they said something about I want to go west, or why would you want to go west, or something like that. And to me, west always means Valinor. That always is all right. We're going to Valinor now. And so the way that they used it in this first part of the episode made it seem like Anarion was wanting to convince people to go west, and that doesn't work. That's not who the characters are. That changes a little bit. It's recontextualized a little bit down later in the episode. We go back to the Arondir storyline, and this is where they are introducing Adar. I don't remember how it's pronounced. Adar, I think, or Adar. I don't know. Whatever the case, the creepy dude, creepy servant of Sauron dude. So Joseph Mawle, I don't know, Mawle, is the actor. So Joseph is very, very good. He's a brilliant actor. I'm not sure what I think of Adar though. Adar. The actor is very good. He's doing a very good job in the role. I don't know what I think of the character yet. Their first thoughts, theories as to who he might be would be that maybe he's one of the so the origins of orcs. One of the potential origins of orcs is that they were corrupted elves. And so I'm thinking now, well, maybe because Adar does mean father, that's a elvish word for father. And so as soon as like that got brought up in the episode, I was like, oh, is he one of the original elves that was corrupted by Morgoth, who was corrupted by promise of power? Because you see, it talks about in the trailer or in the episode that I'm not a god, at least not yet, or something like that. And so I'm theorizing whether or not this is true. I don't know. It's just a theory that I'm throwing out there, that Adar is one of the original elves who were corrupted by Morgoth, corrupted by the promise of power, and so he is actually the father of the orcs. He is one of the fathers, or one of the original elves who their descendants became the orcs, corrupted beings. So I don't know if that's what they're doing. It kind of fits with what they're trying to make him out to be, and I kind of like it. So it's just a theory. I don't know if I want it to be true. I kind of like it, but I don't know if I really like it. So yeah. Anyways, continuing on. Okay, so just a little tiny nitpick here, but back in the tower, whatever the tower is called, where it's like a stronghold and all the humans are gathered and everything, I did like the Aura Druid name drop, even though they pronounced it wrong. That's all right. So anyways, back in that storyline, there's one of the characters, I didn't write down his name because I didn't care that much, but he has like a cap thingy on, but there's holes cut out for his ears, and it looks so weird. It just looks so weird. And all I can think of is, why are there holes cut out for his ears? It actually took me out of the scene enough to be like, this just looks wrong. It looks so weird. So, okay, so there's a conversation between Elrond and Celebrimbor, and it's so the first time we switch to Elrond's storyline for the first time, and it's looking out the window at what my first thought was, oh, we're back on Numenor now, because it looks like technology, it looked like Numenor, it looked like the technology that Numenor would have, because they're very advanced technologically. But then it pulls back in, and we find out that it's Elrond and Celebrimbor building the forge that Celebrimbor needs built by spring for whatever reason. And so we see like them building it. So first off, I didn't like that it didn't look elven or dwarven. It looked Numenorian to me. But then, so that it goes in and we have that conversation with Celebrimbor, and Celebrimbor does not feel like an elf in this episode. In the previous episodes, yes, he did. I quite liked Celebrimbor, but in this episode, he felt more like Bilbo, like a hobbit, than he feels like an orc, and feels more like a hobbit than the hobbits do in the show. So I'm not sure what to think of that. I didn't love that though. Okay, then we teleport again to Moria. No, stop teleporting, okay? The passage of time, the visual representation of the passage of time in this show is not very good at all. Like, you could get away with some of it because things like the beginning of the first episode where Galadriel and her company are up in the waste, and then we find out that they're now back in, Lindon? And that makes sense because we don't see any other storylines going between those 2 points. It's just, okay, now however long it needed to get back to here, and we're back to here. So that one worked. There's some other ones that work okay, but this one where they keep teleporting back and forth to Eregion, to Moria, or Khazad-dûm is not a short little walk. It's not something that you just, okay, I'm gonna go walk over here today. No, it's far, it's a long ways. So the fact that they keep teleporting, but no time passes anywhere between things, it doesn't work and it doesn't make sense. So they need to do better about making the passage of time make sense. And then the Palantir. So we have a scene where Miriel and Galadriel are using the Palantir Stones. And I don't like this scene at all for several reasons. First one is, I don't believe there were Palantir Stones on Numenor. I might be wrong about that, but I don't believe there are. The Palantir Stones are, what are they called? They're seeing stones. And how you see them is you place them in the correct orientation, and then you look into them, and then if you want to, so if you're wanting to look west, you situate yourself on the east side of the rock and look into the rock. And the rock will show you the west, what's happening in the west. It always shows you in time what is currently happening. It never shows you the past, never shows you the future, none of that. They are seeing stones, they're communication stones from one place to another. That's what they're there for. And so Galadriel puts her hand on it and sees a vision of the future. No, that's not how Plantier Stones work at all. That's not how they worked in The Lord of the Rings. That's not how they work in Unfinished Tales, where it actually describes how they work. I understand that they don't have the rights to Unfinished Tales, and so might as well just use some similar things as to what were done in Lord of the Rings, in which the holding the Palantir Stone in your hand, okay, whatever, I can forgive that. I can't forgive the looking into them and seeing the future, because that's not how they work. That is not their role. That has never been their role. So I don't like that. I'll have to do some more research, because I looked into it a little bit at one point, and I don't remember what I found out. But I seem to remember that the Palantir Stones were not on Numenor. I may be wrong about that. That's fine. But all 7 of them were known about and were known where they were supposed to be during the kingdoms of Arnor and Gondor, because that's where they were at. There was 3 in Arnor and 5 in Gondor or something like that. And that's how they were broken, how they were separated out. So why are they saying, there used to be 7, but we don't know where they're all at now? So are they trying to make it out that this one that is in this tower is the same Palantir as what ends up with Saruman, because that's the only one that we see in The Lord of the Rings, which it's technically not. We also see we know of 2 other ones, because Sauron has one, which he got from Minas Ithil, most likely. It's not ever confirmed that, but we can extrapolate out and figure, yeah, he got it from Minas Ithil. The one from Osgiliath is gone. We know that one existed, but it's gone now, is the Master Stone. And then there's one in Minas Tirith that Denethor has. And so we know of 3 within Lord of the Rings that are active. Saruman's, and Denethor's. So those 3 are all active. So why are they saying that, but the other 6 have been lost to time or whatever? Stop it, okay? Stop changing the lore into things that don't work with the lore. Okay, then we go back to the Arondir storyline. This storyline I liked up until they let Arondir go. I didn't like that they let Arondir go at all. That just seems like a stupid idea on their part. Yeah, so I didn't like that they let Arondir go. And I also don't like that Theo, who is not a very smart kid, decided to go to the town and look for food by himself or with one other person without telling anybody, so nobody actually knows where he's at or what he's doing. They just know that he doesn't come back. But also, like the whole sequence of him hiding in the well, it's so predictable, it's so cringe, and it's so like stupid, because the character is just a dumb decision after dumb decision. And then he almost gets killed, and Arondir saves him because Arondir's awesome. And they're running through the woods trying to get back. Theo has a slice in his leg, and so he can't move at all, hardly. And so Arondir is trying not to get them both killed, and does some cool archery stuff, actually runs out of arrows, which I appreciate. And then it's just, I'm very disappointed with the level of incompetency that the orc archers have, because there was one arrow that almost hit something, and that's the one that Arondir caught and then shot back. That's not, what is it? He shoots like this, something like that. So that was just frustrating. I'm like, stop it, okay? we already make fun of the stormtroopers for this exact thing. Don't make the orcs like this too, because we know that the orcs are not that bad of archers. Okay, and then we get back to Elrond and Durin's storyline, and this conversation comes up between, or Durin says something about, I wish that I'd never had to talk to the old goat again, talking about his father or something like that. Whatever the exact quote is, I don't know, I didn't write it down. But then Elrond starts to talk and tell the tale of his father, Erendil. And I really appreciate hearing that. It's something that definitely needs to be in there. But the tale, so it was well told, it was well timed, and it was well used. Even if it was predictable, I knew exactly what the point of it was going to be, but still it was nice to hear. So I knew exactly as soon as Durin said something about, I wish I never had to talk to his dad again. I knew exactly. I was like, all right, so here now Elrond is going to tell the story of his father Erendil and say, but I would give everything if I could just have one more conversation with him, which is exactly what happened. It was nice to hear. It was nice to hear about Erendil because it's a favorite character of mine, a favorite storyline of mine, and so that was nice to hear. But it was very predictable. So overall thoughts on the episode, not terribly positive. I did not particularly love this episode. I thought it was okay. It definitely furthered the story. It furthered the characters there was a lot of character development for Galadriel, because Halbrand's like, stop being stupid, stop being brash, think before you act. That was good. It caused some character development for Galadriel, hopefully leading her to the point that we know her to be from Lord of the Rings. So character development, I'm glad it happened. Story progression, I'm glad it happened. I just don't like what the story is doing at the moment. Most of the storylines didn't hold any interest for me. I wasn't terribly interested in the episode as a whole. Now, it may be because I was super tired last night when I watched it. But whatever the case, the episode didn't work terribly well for me, and that's all right. I just hope that it keeps getting better. One thing, I did say that I was going to mention more about Tar Palantir. So Palantir is a seeing stone. That's what it's there for. Tar Palantir is basically, I want to say he was called the Farsighted or something like that, which was both a reference to him being very wise and being able to look into the future and see and think things through. And I believe he was named Palantir as his given name, but then that was also reflected in his abilities as he was king and stuff like that. And so I could be wrong about that as well. But whatever the case, Tar Palantir was just a very, and that's the other thing. I don't remember, because I almost think that Tar Palantir may have had a Palantir Stone, and I don't remember, because I don't remember where. I think this is all talked about in the Silmarillion, is where you get most of this information. And it's been several months now since I read Silmarillion, and so I'm forgetting some of the stuff. I need to do some more research, but I didn't like any of the Palantir stuff. I think it's Palantir is the correct pronunciation. Anyways, so I didn't love any of the Palantir stuff. I just said it wrong again, Palantir stuff. But as the episode as a whole, the storylines I'm not loving. There was some good parts to each of them. There were some things that I liked about each storyline. But there was also just the whole didn't work. And this is something that I mentioned in one of my responses to somebody who commented on my last video, I think it was, where they were talking about lots of good scenes. And so I said, yeah, this show seems to be made up of a lot of good scenes, but not a good whole. And that's definitely what I felt with this episode. This episode was not, there was some good moments, some good scenes, but as a whole, the whole episode I didn't care for it at all. This discussion is getting rather long, so I'm trying to wrap it up here. But because of that, I have needed to rethink some of my ratings for the episode. So I'm going to quickly do that. Episode 1, I still think comfortably sits at a 4 or 5. That isn't great. Episode 2, I previously had it at a 7, I think. I'm gonna drop that down to like a 6, because it's not horrible. It's definitely quite a bit better than the first episode, but not great. So I think I'll leave that at about a 6. Episode 3, I had at a 7.5, I believe. That one needs to go down to like a 6.5 or a 7. And then this episode is also like a 6.5, 6 or 6.5, maybe 7, but it's right around there as well. Definitely furthered some of the storyline along, furthered some of the character development. So those things are good, but also it just like, I was not interested in this episode. They weren't able to keep my interest as I was going through. But I continued through it because I kind of have to. So that is my discussion. Those are my thoughts on The Rings of Power episode 4, and I will leave it at that. I really don't have anything more to say. Hopefully you guys are able to take something from this. Hopefully you are, if you know the answers to any of the things that I am forgetting or questioning myself on, please put them down in the comments below so that I can remember them and get the information back. But thank you guys for watching our adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday and Wednesdays for adaptation stuff. We will see you guys again soon. Stay well.